So every single Wednesday at 1 Eastern, noon Central, I reach out to a real life trader somewhere out in the world and just interview them, learn their story, learn about them, and get more insight on their life, how they trade, how they stay happy, how they stay positive. And this particular person that's coming up next, as I mentioned, is just one of the most incredible people I've ever had the pleasure of just chatting with. She's an amazing person. We have done coaching together. She also came down to my Money Grows on Trees event in Florida. I've had many people request that I interview this special lady just because she's so vibrant and so infectiously energetic. So let me get Miss Joanna on the phone. I'll be giving her a call on her cell phone. And as soon as this goes through, give me like 19 more seconds. We're going to chat with Joanna, and then we'll update our trade on RHI, and that'll be that. Pretty common, normal Wednesday. So I'm just going to let this load. I should have already had it loaded. Someone says T-Mobile has been a roller coaster today. Yeah, T-Mobile and AT&T, they've been all over the place. All right, here goes a phone call. Let me make sure you guys can hear. I'll turn the computer sound on. That'd be smart. Make sure I do that. Okay.
This is Joanna.
Miss Joanna, how are you?
Hey, how are you, Chair?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good. So the phone said no caller ID. I thought it was you, but then I said, what if you answer the phone, hello, Chair? Then whoever is there is going to feel like I'm disappointed that it's not you. See?
Yes, that is a very valid thought, but
There's a message to this.
It is my honor to be chatting with you today.
No, it's my honor to be chatting with you today, live from Fernandina Beach, Florida. Anyway, so how they hanging, Jeremy? How they hanging?
So far, as Jim Carrey says, slightly shriveled to the left.
Oh my God. I guess I didn't need all that information, but okay. All right, that's fine. That's just fine. That's just fine. Oh my God! But it's so exciting in the room this week. Oh my God!
It is. It's awesome. Very exciting. I appreciate you being here. I want everyone to kind of learn a little bit about your story, Joanna. So, can you tell everyone just a little bit about your background? Where do you live? What have you been doing with your life? Who are you? What do you love? All that good stuff.
Okay. So this is so boring. Anyway, so I live in Fernandina Beach, Florida, having fled Connecticut's, high taxes and all of that. But interestingly, the governor there has decided that he doesn't really relish the exodus so much. So they're rolling back income tax and things like that in Connecticut. So I may look at going back to New England. Love it there. So about 100 years ago, I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and lived there most of my life until I went to college in White Plains, New York. And that's essentially where I went to a Catholic girls' school and eventually wound up turning down a spot at the Young Artists program at the Metropolitan Opera twice. No regrets. I used to throw up before I sang, so I thought to myself, this is probably not for you. But anyway, so I was in the convent for a little while and taught. I taught second grade. When I came out, I taught second grade, high school, and adults in the White Plains school system, which was great fun. And I think, at least in the adult version, I did a little bit of good there. Then I lived in Manhattan for about 20 years or so, maybe 15 to 20 years. And when 700 square feet got a little bit tight for me, I thought to myself, well, a number of my friends in the city had gone on to other States to do things like, artistic director for the Minnesota Opera, and another friend became the director for the San Francisco Symphony, artistic director. So a lot of my pals, my day-to-day pals were leaving the city. I mean, in those days, there was nobody left for me to hang on the phone with and watch Dallas on Friday night. So I thought, well, maybe it's time to broaden my horizons a little bit. So then I moved to Connecticut, back to Connecticut where I was born, and I loved it there. I had a really nice career I loved in healthcare at the executive director level, which I loved because you could really make a difference. You could make things great for patients. You could have happy doctors. You could have staff that felt like they were being developed and appreciated and actually were learning something. The downside to that sometimes is you develop your people and then they grow and so they leave you. So, I figured out after a while that it was worth the pain because it's good. It's just good to have that kind of energy, I think, around. So anyway, so then I did that. Then the last position I had in healthcare was the executive director of an orthopedic group practice in Connecticut. We had 5 sites, about 115 employees, and we had 9, I guess, by the time I left, I had just finished our 9th service line. So it was really great fun. But, I was old then, and I thought, the hip is bothering me. Maybe it's time to go. So I did. So I moved to Connecticut because it was just too expensive to live there and not have the big job. Moved down to Florida, found a little house that I rehabbed on a lake here, and it's really beautiful. So the great thing about moving along, if you keep your feet going one right after the other, is that there's never, ever a limit to what you can reinvent about yourself. You just move from one place to the other, look around you, see where your feet are, and see what you got, see what you can do.
I love that.
That's it. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
I love that. So when you're moving down here, what got you interested in trading? What was that process like?
So I think the first thing was back in the day, let's see now, probably in the 90s, when computers, I'm old enough to remember every year getting a new Selectric, IBM Selectric, and thinking, I was on the top of the world. But when computers came in, I was running a hand surgery center in Manhattan at the time. And the first iteration of that was really a word processor. And I talked my boss into spending $2,000 and buying a computer. So he used to call it a piece of shit until he figured out that he no longer had to have all of his talks. He used to talk around the world. He's a very famous hand surgeon. He figured out that he could have his notes back in 20 minutes instead of 7 days. And then, he kind of changed his tune a little bit. And I wound up bringing a computer home and started to get interested in finance. I just became fascinated by it. Back in those days, I think the NASDAQ, if it was even in existence, was probably under 2,000. And I don't remember what the Dow was. But I remembered looking at, stocks like AOL. In those days, I would even in those days, I'd watch the business news and watch what traders were doing, and I was always fascinated by it. My downfall, I think, was that I was so busy, I could just never really get into it because I used to work 80, 90 hours a week. Not complaining, I'm just saying that's the way it was.
Right.
I worked at special surgery for a while, and the spine docs that I used to work for would finish surgery around 9 o'clock at night, and sometimes my butt was there at that time because that's the only time we could get work done. So I began to just look at it a little bit and began trading. So at one point, when I decided to move to Connecticut, the few stocks that I owned, one of which was Tesla at $7.50. Don't cry.
Oh,
$7.50. And I sold it, and I sold AOL, which I had at the time, and a couple of others. I don't think I ever bought Amazon because I thought at $28, Amazon was just too expensive. So I never bought Amazon. But I bought a few stocks, and I sold those stocks to buy my first house. Now, the good news is every house I've owned has made some money. But can you imagine Tesla? I only own 250 shares, but can you imagine?
Yeah. Wow.
Back in the
Absolutely.
day. But everyone has those stories, Everyone has those stories.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to someone this morning. I have buds down here. I go have coffee like at 6:30 because I'm up at the crack of dawn. In the convent, we used to get up at 5. So I'm just used to getting up then. So I like to get up then. And they're friends of mine who get up early too. So we were having coffee this morning telling our stock trading war stories. And he had Microsoft many, many years ago. Dale is he was the CEO of an orthopedic group practice in Colorado. Came here to spend a weekend once with his wife. I invited them. Before I left, we had a national association. I said, anybody wants to come to? I wanted company, right, friends?
Yep.
I said, anybody wants to come to Fernandina? Come, stay in my guest room. Well, they did, and a few days later, they bought a house here, and then the following year, Dale retired here. It was great.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, he tells the story many, many years ago when he was the CEO of this orthopedic group practice. I think he'd been with them like 20 years. He sold Microsoft. He figured out that if he never sold it, if he held on to it, he'd be worth over $200 million right now.
Wow.
Listen, He's doing fine. No pity, but oh my God. It's just, I love stories like that though.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I have a few of those myself, and I think every good trader does. And we have to learn from those stories. We have to find out what takeaway can we have, and what can we learn, and how can we hold longer and invest more and be in the right places at the right times.
Well, and also I really love what your approach is, that part of the reason for having some gain is to be able to invest on a downturn or whatever. And I never thought about trading as a multifaceted approach. I just thought you traded when they were high, you sold them, you try to buy them low, and then when they go up, you get rid of them. No, it's not like that. It's actually an investment. And if you're young enough, it's a solid investment in your future. If I had to do it all over again, which who knows, a lot of people say there's that possibility. I don't think so, but it's great. What I think is great is that when I watch people in the room, I think Clive was one, and there was another one who posted just today, mm-hmm. showing photos of himself with his children or neighbors' children or grandchildren, and you could see the trading desk was open, and the kids were there. I thought that was awesome. We don't do enough of that. Anywhere. We don't do enough of that because it's exciting. Business is really exciting, and we don't teach that enough. So who knows? If I ever do another second grade, I'll get into it. You never know.
I think that's fantastic, man. That's so good. So where did you learn your just a sense of enthusiasm? Have you always had that, or how do you stay so happy and energetic? Because you're always just the brightest star in the sky.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'll tell you, when I was in the 8th grade, without going into the details, I had a rough childhood. And when I was in the 8th grade, I remember clearly, I was really sad. I felt really sad. I looked really sad. And I used to walk around like that. And I remember that people would stay away from me. The students would stay away, kind of the neighbors would stay away. And I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, and I had a Jewish neighbor who used to kind of look out for me. She sort of knew what was going on at home, and she would call me in sometimes, and we would have like lunch together. And she said to me at the time, and this changed me, she said at the time, she said, and now I was young, so I didn't know her background. I didn't know how many relatives she had lost, how much loss was in her background. But she said to me, she said, I'm paraphrasing now, but she said, Joanna, she said, sometimes you just have to put on your nice shoes, she said. Mm-hmm. And she said, you have to put on your, like your nice new skirt. Girls wore skirts in those days. And she said, you have to walk with your chin up, hips to the wind, meaning you get the idea. She said, and then you have to act as if. She said, because sometime around the corner, she said, it'll be that. Just try a little bit. And
Mm.
so I went back to school the next day, and I started to smile and say hello to people. Just that. That's all I thought I could do. Just smile and say hello to people. And it was in that year that I was smiling and saying hello to people that my choral teacher then discovered that I had a voice. And so you never know. You just never know. And then I discovered that I was actually pretty good at it, And so you begin to forget about your own woes, and you begin to think, because when you smile at people, it invites them in.
Right.
So when you invite people in, so sometimes they have a story, and I found, that I was a good listener, and that there were things that I could do for people sometimes just by listening or sitting around and being a good friend, and eventually by singing. When I was in college, my college friends, when we were staying away, used to drag me out to the corridor to sing to them. It was hilarious.
I love
but
that.
it was therapeutic for everybody, for me, for them, kind of like that. Then once when I was in the convent, this is something else that changed my adult life. One of the nuns, Sister Mary Thomas, came down to the city to see me. This was after I left. And we were walking up Park Avenue, and she said, because I must have been whining about, how hard I was working, and there had been some stuff in the news about a zoo. I think it was in Czechoslovakia, where there was, in the war region at the time, terrible things happening. And the zoo animals died, and I just couldn't sleep at night thinking about it, because I thought about the people dying and the zoo animals dying and just the terrible state and this and this. And we were walking by, and she said, "Look up there." And I looked up, and of course the brownstones on some towers, some brownstones on Park Avenue, the folks that live there are doing just fine. So she looked up there and she said, "Think for a minute." She said, "They each have their own lives." She said, "Do you think any of them are happier than you are?" And I thought about it for a minute, and I thought to myself, I know some people from my medical practice, and so physicians and heads of departments and wealthy patients whom I know are not happy. And so I said to her, maybe not. And so she knew I was sad about the zoo and about that, and she said, "So here's something to think about." I'm paraphrasing again, but it again changed me. She said, "Just be aware of your mile." And I said to her, "My mile?" And she said, "Look around you." She said, "Be alert. Look around you." You know how you always say enrich lives? To me, that's the same thing. It's enriching your mile. It's enriching what's right in front of you. It's doing what you can do for yourself, of course. You have to be okay yourself, or you don't have much to give. You have to be okay. And then once you are, you can sort of be aware of your mile, be aware of the people that are around you. And that's kind of what I do. I try really hard not to worry about the things I can't fix, change. I do make donations to people who are trying to help things in other parts of the world, or things that I can't directly affect and I hear about. But I'm really conscious of the people that are around me, like even on my street, the lady next door is in hospice. So I know what her end story is going to be. So I go over there once a week and bring dinner. I do what I can. But that's what it is. It's about taking care of your mile. So I think that's what it is, even if you don't feel it. So Mimi Melson taught me to act as if, and Sister Mary Thomas taught me to take care of my mile. If you put those things together, usually you can have a pretty decent life. You have to make it so. You have to make it so. Like sometimes you have to, in my head, I'll sometimes scream to Joanna. So I'll say, "Shut the fuck up." Like in my head, if I say, in my head, I'm screaming it, saying, "Shut the fuck up." Because in my head, I'm saying, "Oh my God, you're so fat." Or, "Oh my God, are you kidding? You're going to eat more ice cream?" And I just tell myself what I just told you. I hope there's not a whole room of people listening. But anyway, so that's what I do. And you know what? It helps. It's like your trading plan. That's an analogy. It's like you make a decision, then you haul your ass to that decision, and you just stay with it until it's done, and then you reevaluate it. By my last calculation, we have 2.5 months.
That's right. That's right. And so tell us, I mean, talk about the trading thing, and you're bringing up the trading thing. What, in your opinion, in your many years of experience and just your wide range of wisdom, what's the hardest part of trading and why?
Discipline and patience.
Discipline. Really? You think so?
Yes,
Why?
because what happens is, well, I'll give you an example, and it's a recent example because I'm just coming upon it now. So in my trading plan, as you know, I have specific stocks that I look at. So right now up on my desk, I have Zynga, MAXR, MAXR, I have UXIN, and Kronos right now, because those four stocks, through some things that you and I predetermined, are the things that I'm looking at right now. Mm-hmm. What was enormously difficult for me in the beginning was not to be in a trade. I didn't get it. I didn't get that. I'd heard it. You know, I'd heard people say it in the rooms, and I've watched people eat onions and, you know, all this stuff. But until I actually did the exercise, so here's my exercise. I can't trade before the market is open, at least five minutes for me. And I can't trade pre-market, and I'm looking at very specific stocks, no more than 2 or 3 trades. So I have 4 up all the time, and, you know, and then I make that decision. That in the first, so I'm 2 weeks into this now. In the beginning of that, and even as I first joined RLT back in February, that was just, that whole concept was above my head. It just went way above my head. I'm much better looking at a broad picture than a specific picture. So as an executive director, I'm looking at all of the staff. I'm looking at all of our 2,500 patients that month. I'm looking at a P&L. And the specific things come down only as it relates to all of that. This is almost the opposite of it. Here, I'm looking at the minutia, trying to build a broader picture. It's the absolute opposite of what I'm used to doing, which is marvelous for somebody my age now to suddenly get like smart in a different way. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I get very excited about it. Yeah, well, you already know it doesn't take a lot, but this is very exciting. This is like a whole sort of reinvent. And it made me so nervous in the beginning that I couldn't do basic math. I mean, like add, multiply, subtract, divide. I was doing it all on paper and saying to myself, dear God, WT, what are you doing? And then somehow in the last few days, it just clicked in. I get it now. For me, somebody else's experience may be different, but I get it. If I'm watching something and I don't get in, so what? So what? I have an idea. My research is good. I've figured that out. My research is good. The stock will turn around and come back where I want it, or I'll move on to something else. And as I have it all written down, so there's a very specific plan, which sometimes when you're the executive director, you have to go by the seat of your pants. It's what makes you good.
Right.
It's like what made me, and I'll just say I was the bomb. Anyway, but what made me good at it is I could really think fast on my feet, big picture. In this instance, I have to plan the minutia, understand the smaller picture in order to one day grow a big picture. Totally opposite.
I love that. Wow. Interesting. So you're mentioning what's your list of stocks that you're following? What's kind of like the ones that you keep an eye on?
So the big 4, the 4 that I'm looking at right now are ZNGA, Zynga, MAXR, UXIN, and CRON. And why? Because I'm trying to see, they go up a certain percentage, a certain dollar amount, penny amount every single day. So Zynga may, roam around between 20 and 30 cents. MAXR, sometimes 50 cents or more. UXIN, same thing, around 25 or so cents, but you can buy more of those shares. And Kronos, which, early in the year, when I first started, I made like $8,000 on that stock, just going up and down, up and down, up and down. And so I have some, knowledge of that stock. I first bought it when it was $6.50 and then sold it at 11, then bought it again at $8.50, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I stick with, and then Pinterest is the next one, PINS. AMD right now in Twitter, and Marvell, MRVL, I'm also looking at, but they cost a little bit more. And so I'm sort of sticking with stocks where I can buy a few more shares at this moment. That may change. I have the 8 stocks that that I sort of looked at initially. And when these are no longer, someone had said it must be that it could be boring looking at the same. In a sense, that's true in one sense. In another sense, as you gain knowledge, I'm like yesterday with Pinterest, I knew that from back trading it, what it almost exactly was going to do. Now, you never know exactly what it's going to do, but it had done it over and over and over again. And I was right. And I was able to get in the trade later, not earlier. And, and it actually hit my target before I could swing for 4 days. I think I was in it too. So it makes a difference to go tackle the minutia and to look at something that's familiar. Like now when I open my screen in the morning, I'm not searching for something to trade. It's right here. And I've already planned the night before where I think the trade should be. What I learned in the last 2 days is I can adjust that a little bit. So, Maxar, for instance, this morning I was looking at getting into that trade at 774. I didn't get it. And I thought, should I take it at 778? And I held back, so I missed it. And it's trading now at 824. So I missed that one, and I would have made a little money on it. With Chronos, I knew that it would head down this morning, and it did. And when it got down to about 1510, and I started to watch it, and it just began to creep up a little bit, I locked in at 1517. It went side to side and a little bit down, but sure enough, over time, now I'm working today, as you know, so I'm doing some recruiting. So in between talking to people, and so I set up a conditional trade because I didn't want to miss an R if I was going to get it. And I know I'm busy today, so I did set up a conditional trade. So I would have a stop at the bottom and a 1R gain at the top if it ever hit it, never expecting it to. Well, it did, actually. Yeah. And if I had set an alert, and I learned today, here's what I learned, that if I set up an alert, don't be afraid of the alert. Just go in, see what it is, and do whatever you think you should do based on the alert. So I learned that today. And even though it's trading now at about 1568, I got out. My target was 1545. That's the 1R, or almost the 1R target. And I got out then. It stopped while I was working. And so I thought to myself, you know what? It would have been 10 minutes before I could have gotten to it if I had gotten an alert. And sometimes it would have gone down, but it certainly wouldn't have, I wouldn't have lost anything. Yeah. So in the future, I'll do that. So every day, paying attention to the minutia is making me a better trader. Does this mean that I'm always going to trade? Who knows? I just am taking it one day at a time, one little tootsie foot in front of the other at a time, 1 or 2 trades at a time, and seeing how I'm doing. The thing I like the best these days is that I feel calmer about it. I've been sort of like a Liberty gibbet since February, nervous, and watching all the superstars in the room just hit it out of the park. And I'm so totally enamored of the way that people just sort of embrace what they're doing and really succeed. Success is like hot. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like intensifying. And people in the rooms, even when people somebody posted today like a little sad face because they missed, I think, 0.9 R, they lost. But then right in the next sentence, on to the next one. Yeah. which is exactly right. Let it go. Just let it go. Sort of like, boyfriends when I was younger. Yeah. Just let it go. Bet. You don't like that, girl? Bye. On to the next one.
That is so funny.
That's it.
So tell us on Chronos with your setup. What was your stop? So because you said you mentioned that you got in around like 15, 17. So where was your stop on that trade?
Yeah. So on my I got in at 15, 17. My stop was 14.98. So I would have lost around $75 or so.
Gotcha.
And I don't like big, because I can't right now today. I don't want big losses. I don't want to do that. So and it had plenty of it doesn't move that quickly. You know what I mean? It does. Chronos once in a while will take a dive, but it doesn't usually move that quickly. There's time to deal with it. So I had to stop at 1498, and my entry point originally was 1514. So when it got down, when it started to come down, it just moved too quickly at the point. And I changed my entry to 17. I figure out 2 or 3 cents. I feel like I'm still in the, but like if it gets more than that, I won't. I'll just let it go, because I don't want to chase it. You know, I've had bad experience chasing it. 5 cents worth or 3 cents worth, I don't feel like is chasing it. It's in terms of what these today, in terms of what those stocks are. Maybe when it's bigger than I'm doing right now, but that worked. And then my target was 1545, which I thought was pie in the moon, because it was trading around. I was going up and down 1513 to 1523 forever, or it felt like forever. And whenever I would check on it, and then by the time I logged out of the room and went to work, I had set up a conditional trade, so I had a stop in place that was reasonable, and I had almost 1 hour. I miscalculated it by a nickel, but math. Anyway, so it was 1545 was my target, and it just did it without me while I was working. So that was great. When it first came over, I thought I had lost money, because when I last looked at the chart was moving side to side and not up. So I thought it had, tanked. But I was pleasantly surprised. So I was happy about that.
Okay. Well, good. I mean, I think that's a great that you, like I said, you have that plan and you have the ability to follow it, because that's, like you mentioned, I think you're right. That's one of the hardest parts of trading, is just that discipline and that patience and that waiting for something to happen, and not always being in a trade. Because for people who trade, they love trading, right? So they feel this need and this desire to always be in a trade at all times.
No, and I think, so what happens now is I am positive, from my plan, I'm now in the positive. I'm up about a half an hour or something from when I started. Actually, I'm up an hour from when I started my plan, which is great. So the last 2 trades have been good trades. I'm not going to put a down payment on a house with what I've won, but I've had a positive trade, a positive experience, and every time that happens, you learn something from it. And I even went back after the trade happened. I went back in to see if anybody was, because I set this all up last night, to see if anybody was trading down into the area where I would be comfortable trading and what I had set on my plan last night. Nobody was, so guess what? I'm done for the day.
Right.
And then I'll do the same thing all over again tonight. I'll look and see where everything is. I'll back trade the last 3 months for my 3 stocks, just so I feel sure that what I'm doing is current and relevant. And then I'll do the same thing. I have set up 4 stocks, whatever they're going to be. Then I keep them in little sticky notes on my desk, so I know exactly what I'm looking at in the morning. And then I'll either trade if it comes down to where I need it to come, or I won't trade like that.
I love that plan. That sounds very succinct. So what would your advice be, Joanna, for you mentioned traders over a certain age earlier. So without naming any numbers, and you can or can't, it's up to you, but what would your advice be for someone who says, "Oh, old dogs can't learn new tricks. I'm too old. There's no point in me doing this."
Oh no, fuck that. No, I'm sorry. I swear. Here's one thing. I used to swear when I was young, and I still swear. Although, and I read somewhere on one of these little things, I don't know where I saw it, probably on Yahoo News or something, that people who swear are smart. So now, that's it. Now if anybody tells me don't swear, I'll just say, well, okay, I won't swear in front of you. And then, but I've tried. I can't. I've
That's
tried.
right.
I really have. Listen, I remember when I was 21 years old, sitting next to what we used to refer to in the convent as the Mother General. And I was saying to her something was fucking awesome. And she was wonderful. This is a woman with 2 PhDs, and oh my God, she was amazing. Just a brilliant woman. She lives on a planet I will never visit. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
But her eyes blinked. You know, you could see her eyes flutter. But she's so elegant. She didn't say one word. She just continued with the meal. But I got the message, you know. I got the message. Nuns don't swear. Okay, if I stop swearing, or at least in front of her.
For a little bit, yeah, exactly, for a little bit.
Yeah.
No, hey, like I said, you always be you. That's the thing. That's real life truth.
Yeah.
I don't want that person. I want you to always be yourself in every way possible.
You have to be you with common sense. It's just what it is. Be you, but have some common sense about it.
So you're telling me that people, if they're a certain age, they can still learn this stuff. They can still trade. They can still make money.
Oh, yeah. Listen, there are absolutely biologic things that happen. So, for instance, I know from having a hip replacement, which has made me 29 again, I might add.
Hip replacement?
Yes, I had. Listen, it's why I left work. It's a big lesson. That's why I left work. I could no longer. I'm a very hands-on administrator, so I would go out to the clinic. You know, it was, I don't know, 20,000 square feet, whatever it was, the mother house. And then we had 4 sites in 4 other towns. So I used to make it a point to visit every single site at least once a week. And then during the day in the large site where the walk-in centers were and the physical therapy center was, we had our x-ray there and all of this, and occupational therapy, where all of that was. I had a big hourglass on my desk. It was so pretty. It was an antique. And I used to just flip it upside down. And when the hour ran out, up my body went and out to the clinic. And I'd just walk around and, you know, see how things were going and how everybody was. And I'd come back again. When it got so that I could no longer do that, I thought, you know what? And I didn't want to go out to dinner and meet new doctors and recruit. I had so much pain, I didn't want to do it anymore. So I left. In essence, I gave them a year's notice and I left. When I got down here,
a year's notice, wow.
I did, and I didn't even get out. It still took 4 months longer than that. Well, it's a lot, you know. When you do a role like that, and that role changes, it will change the entire practice. So I didn't leave lightly. You know what I mean? I knew that it would be hard when I left. So anyway, they gave me a grand send-off. Best party I ever had. It was awesome. But anyway, so when I got down here, I thought, okay, now what? You know, within a year, realizing I couldn't, you know, my little dog passed rocks, and I wanted to get another dog, and I thought, why would you do that to a dog? You can't walk. And then I thought to myself, I began thinking about all the things I wasn't doing. So I bit the bullet. I found a great doc in private practice, not hospital-based, and I talked with him, told him what was going on. Anyway, within 3 weeks, the new hip was in, and within 3 weeks after that, I had my puppy dog, and I was walking. That's it.
Oh, man, that's incredible. I want to share, just so everyone knows, this lady that we're speaking with on the phone right now, when she was at the Money Grows on Trees event with me and a bunch of other beautiful human beings in Port St. Lucie, Florida, a few months ago, I hit the gym at 5 a.m. to work out, and guess who was the first one in? Crushing the weights and eating the iron was Miss Joanna's 5:15 in the morning. So what's your morning schedule normally? Do you work out? Do you go for a walk? Do you meditate?
Yeah, I have, so I do things, you know, and also I'm on keto now, so I lost like 21 pounds. Listen, this is it. I'm going to be a brand new 71-year-old. That's the way it's going to be, because you can continue to reinvent yourself. So now I have a new career. I do recruiting for all my pals and my healthcare people in Connecticut. That's what I do to make some definitive R's.
Sure.
So to maintain a living and, you know, all of that. And then I'm learning to trade. So this is this whole new career right in front of me. So I still get up at 5 in the morning. Usually the first thing I do is get on the floor, because as you get older, it's harder to get on the floor. It just is. You'll see in about 40 years.
You mean the physical floor?
The physical floor. I get on the goddamn floor.
What you doing down there? You can do some push-ups? What's going on?
Well, I do planks. I start out with planks, and I try to hold it for as long as I can, and I can't hold it for very long. But I hold it. Then I sit and I stretch over, way over to my left, way over to my right, and way over forward. Then I do leg lifts. Then I do the 5 Tibetan rites is what they are. So you spin, then you get on the floor. I do leg lifts. Then I do, looks like a table. I do those. And then I do downward dog. And then, so it's a modified version. So I do as many as I can, the regular version. And then it's downward dog into an eagle. And you just go up and down the whole time.
Wow.
So that takes me about 20 minutes. Then once that's done, I think to myself, good job, Joe. I pat myself on the back. I give myself a big hug, and I stand up and I walk the dog. Then I come back and have my reward, which is coffee. Then I sit down and see, like what the markets are doing and all of that, and I place my weights all over the house because during the day, I have, I have some smaller weights that I do some boxing with, some punch weights with.
Yeah.
And then I have other weights that I lift, up to 10 pounds or so. The gym membership was getting on the expensive side, so I've given it up for a little while. But I have plenty of weights and a stationary bike here, plus it's easy to walk in Fernandina. You sweat like whatever, but there's plenty of space to walk here. So I exercise every day, and I've been doing that since I was 32, pretty much.
I love that. That's wonderful advice. Because I totally agree. I mean, you got to keep that body moving.
You have to move, and as you get older, here's the deal. If I just, like when I go, sometimes, my college friends, last weekend I was with my college friends in Fort Myers, and one of my friends has this great house with a pool and, whatever. So the 4 of us pretty much talk, eat, and swim in the pool. That's about what we do for 3 days, and then we all go back to our lives again. But I will tell you that if I don't move, then it's harder. You as you get older, you got to keep everything. The Tin Man is real. You have to keep yourself moving, and it's really important. I think it's even more important than even like if I haven't exercised and somebody asks me to go maybe have breakfast or whatever, I won't do that. I won't socialize. I won't do anything until I've taken care of my body, until I'm sure that I can move, that I've moved and I felt moving. And it's really important. As you get older, it's important. So when I was 32, this really cute woman down the end of the hall, 5'2", maybe she weighed 90 pounds. And I weighed at the time, you don't want to know. But anyway, I've never been a tiny child. Nope, never been. So she came over and said, come to the gym with me. And I said, what? I'm not going to the... Anyway, she dragged me over to a class, and I was fortunate enough to have an instructor who modified every single move that all those skinny, beautiful women were doing. She came back to me and she said, and this is how you will do it, and this is how you will do it, and this is how... And eventually, slowly but surely, I was able to do a good portion of what the other folks were doing. So, you do what you could do. It matters as you get older. It matters.
It does, yeah. I think that's wonderful. Wonderful insights, and I love that. With going back to just kind of trading in general, do you have any healthcare companies that you think potentially, based on just some of your experience, might be good long-term investments?
It's kind of, I would say certainly United Healthcare, Cigna, Aetna, they're all, terrific. But I don't think that's where the money's going to be in the future. Right now, I mean, I'll try really hard not to get into the politics of it.
Yeah.
But half the country feels that healthcare is a right. The other half of the country feels that if we could get healthcare in the free markets, which is kind of where I am, that we could probably take care of everyone who need being the motivating word here, everyone who needs to be taken care of and cannot do it for themselves, and for everybody else, who is able-bodied and working, can make sure that they have every benefit that they need. Right now, in terms of investment, I would be looking towards young, entrepreneurial people, most of whom are millennials or younger, trying to figure out how the marketplace can help people to become insured in such a way that they're buying insurance that only applies to them. Like men shouldn't have to buy things like, you're not going to have any babies. It doesn't make any sense for you to carry that. But there may be other things that you should carry that would be much more beneficial to you, sort of, preventive things for cancer that will keep you working and moving your whole life.
Right.
But I think all of that is pioneer land. I don't think that's really been discovered as yet. Somebody said once to me, and I think this is true, if you put Bill Gates in a room with Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and there were a couple of other folks, the head of Google, although he wouldn't be my first choice, and some others, I would bet that they could sit in the room and start to figure out, the head of Walmart, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, and the guy who started Home Depot. If you put those people in a room, none of whom know anything about healthcare, and just looked at the money, just looked at how much is spent every year, and then brought in healthcare experts who understand the business of medicine, people like me, not economists, they can't, or even the presidents and CEOs of hospitals and so, are not necessarily geared toward private practice. I think that the key to the future is private practice. And honestly, it'll just depend on where our politics go. If our politics tend to move to the left in the next election, then we're back to United Healthcare, maybe, and some others. If the politics tend to move to the right, where there's a good environment for entrepreneurs to start to look at healthcare the way that businesses look at it. CVS is already doing this. Walmart is already doing this in some respects. And the current administration, I think, is trying to get some of what we spend on medicine. I remember, I'll just tell you this briefly, and then when we were doing knee injections, Synvisc, Orthovisc, a number of high hyaluronic acids that you would inject into the knee that would allow people who had severe arthritis, either from athletics, 40s and 50s, or who were elderly, about to have a knee replacement. Those medicines cost anywhere, depending on how many injections you were going to have, between $125 and $1,000 an injection. In Canada, the same medicine was 1/10 of the price.
Wow.
So until we start to figure out in this country the numbers, just have somebody take a look at the numbers, and then have the people who know how to run the businesses come in and take a look at it. I think we're always going to struggle with that. But today, just today, obviously, United Healthcare is one huge one, and they're always doing well. Cigna, Aetna, even Blue Cross. Blue Cross had, under Obamacare, Blue Cross in Connecticut had the most profitable 2 years they had ever had before I left. It was amazing. But, again, you got to take the politics out of all this stuff and just let the people who understand computers and understand business work together and figure something out. I hope that happens. Yeah,
wouldn't that be interesting? That's a unique perspective. I like your thoughts on that. I appreciate you sharing that with me, because I know that can become a little bit of a controversial topic, healthcare, but
yes.
I totally agree that I think that people should be taken care of,
yes.
to some degree, at some level. And that is a problem. I think people can agree on that. It's not solved yet, and it's far away from being solved.
And there's no sort of one solution that suits all. You certainly don't want someone who's elderly or someone, I have friends in my lives who have children with special needs, and they will always be involved in their lives as adults, and they make accommodations for them in their wills and, things like that. We must, as a society, I get it, take care of, and you want to. And sometimes you do it extemporaneously, like the lady who's in hospice next door that I bring, food that I cook to. But until we can get everybody at the table, that's not going to happen. And I do hope that we will be able to do that. You got to bring all the voices to the table. It can't be just one view.
Bring all the voices to the table. It's funny.
When my college friends and I get together, half of them are more liberal, the other half are more conservative. We have great discussions. Nobody gets mad. Nobody walks away. Nobody pounds the table. we probe and probe and probe. Everybody's got their cell phones out looking for, basis for certain things. We're looking for critical documents to sort of support, one thing or the other. And it's really very interesting. That's kind of what we need to do in this country, because there's certainly an argument that can be made that everyone should be taken care of. I don't disagree with that. At the same time, I think we have to value work in this country. We have our work participation rate in the country for people who can work is like approximately 65%. How do you incentivize everybody else to see that work is valuable? Trading, the fact that trading takes a long time. How do you teach people, older, younger, whomever, that you can do this, but you have to hang in there? Like hanging in there, the discipline, the commitment, all of that stuff really does matter. So to answer your question that you started way back when I went off on a tangent, older people can do it. They need to do the same thing that the rest of us are doing, and that is they have to commit. And they have to believe that they can. If you've been successful in some other iteration, you can do this. If you've been successfully managing a home for, 40 years and never stepped foot in the workplace, and you manage that home in such a way that you're still in it, oh my God, you can do it.
I really like that quote. If you've managed something before in the past, if you've made something else work, you can figure out trading. It is difficult because it's somewhere in our mind, the fear of losing, the fear of being wrong, the fear of losing all of our money, the fear of, not having enough, the fear of not catching it. All of those things compound, and they can easily stress us out at any point in time.
Yes.
And having that stress and that weight and that economic pressure and that mindset and that fear can be crippling at times,
Well, I think what you're talking about is a plan. Because the plan, just like, you did with me, a few weeks ago, that have a plan that's already been tried and true by someone who has been there before. So you've lost more than I've lost. But I read in your book, I thought, holy shit, if that was, I'd be having like such a heart attack. You've already lost more than most new traders have lost. That's probably true. So when you come into it and a trader sets up a plan, and the trader understands that their plan may be different than someone else's plan, and there's the option for dialogue when they're trying to work it out, they can trade. It makes it, a plan makes you safe. You see, if you follow the plan that you have, it will make you safe. You're not going to lose everything if you're following the plan, the tight stops. And I love that. I love when somebody on Slack will say, oh, way to go, nice tight stop. I use it sometimes during the day, like if I'm in the grocery store and I think, oh, I better stock up on, I say, oh, nope, put a nice tight stop here. Get a little nice tight stop, only fill half the cart, So, it can be applied to anything. My tight stops are in place. That's right.
It's just scary when you're losing. How do you get out? How do you get past that, Joanne? I mean, it's scary. Like all of our money, this is all I have. If I lose it all, I'm bankrupt.
Yeah. That's when you have to tell yourself, shut the fuck up. That's when you have to scream at yourself. And then sometimes, having a great coach is great too. Oh my God. They'll talk you off the ledge. I mean, even in Slack, if you watch some of the threads, when somebody will say, oh, I did this and this and this, you'll see immediately 10 people commenting, no, you're doing just fine. Next time try, because other people in the room support all the other folks in the room, the room. I always refer to it as the room. But, and they do that. They don't think about it. They don't even know that they're gifting. You know what I mean? They don't know they're gifted. They just do it because somehow they've been gifted and it's worked for them. So they're there's this sort of circular sugar wheel. It's this circular sugar wheel that just continues and it never stops. And the thing is, it's important to know that you can't be responsible for someone else's decision. But people need to know that you're not responsible for what I do with my plan. Once the plan is there, it's up to me to have the courage to stick to it and to scream at myself when I'm lacking courage, or even to post maybe that on Slack and get a little bit of support from someone else.
Yeah.
I remember I posted something recently, and I was it Clive? It might have, but a number of people, Tanya, a bunch of people. I could name 50. Greg and Tanya and Jason, there and others, Stephen. People who will post, try this next time, or I did this next time, or here's what a friend sent me. The whole Fibonacci thing. I was looking at those, my eyes were crossing. But, people sharing, David sharing every morning. I mean, all of these things are all support. These are all ways of people supporting you. And it's really awesome. And so when you say to me, I lift up or whatever it is, it's only because right now that's the gift I have. I can't throw you a fit. I can't show you something that may help you that day in your trade, but I can sure support your effort because I get it. I feel it. My heart is with you. So it's like that. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. I never thought about that because, well, I'm sure I've thought about it at some point, but you're right. We all, as traders, all have some type of different gift to give, whatever that might be. And it could be anything.
And it's so important that Joanna, know that there's something to offer, that it may not be what somebody else is offering, but you cannot do that. It's the keeping up with the Joneses thing. Forget what the Joneses are doing. Forget that girl is pretty or that one's skinny, or forget it. Look at all of this is who I am. Come and get it. It's like you have to make yourself understand that the whole of who you are is what's best for everyone around you. And best for you. It's just not about, thinking about yourself in comparison with anything or anyone. What you are is enough. It's just it. It's enough. So I often say to my head, shut the fuck up. I say to myself in my head all the time. You can probably hear that I say that to myself all the time.
That's a quote. That's a big quote takeaway for me right there. The whole of who you are, is what's best for everyone around you. And
it's true.
I think that's incredible. Thank you, Joanna, for that
was
a whole hour.
Oh my God. And I was having such a heart attack over this, but to which I said to myself, stop it, calm down, shut the fuck up. Just stop it. So I feel very flattered that you even, that you thought there was anything, worthwhile. I hope that it has been.
Oh, trust me. I'm sure many, many people, this might be their favorite interview that they go back on and listen to many times. So thank you so much, Joanna. It's been an absolute honor and privilege to speak with you, and have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you, Jeremy. Back at you.
All right,
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, boys and girls, that's the type of people that we have in the trading community. Miss Joanna just crushing knowledge and dropping F-bombs and also dropping knowledge bombs. I love that. Next week, we'll have another interview. Every single Wednesday, we will have an interview at Real Life Trading. Some I make public and some I don't. Most of them I don't. Most of them are only for those traders in the community. So RHI, this particular trade right now is trying to follow Mr. Squiggles a little bit. So we are in this trade. We are down on it, but we're down very, very small. So here's what I'm thinking at this point is most likely going to be best case scenario on RHI is it's going to be end up being a very small win. So I think if we lower the stop down to 63.05, so 63.05 there's a new stop loss on that trade, and it's still being propped up by the 10 EMA on the 15-minute chart. So my plan will be if RHI does not break or close below the 10 EMA on a 15-minute chart in the next 32 minutes, look to bail or exit. That's going to kind of pretty much be the plan on Robert Half International. So hasn't lost yet, and probably will end up being a very, very small win. Best case scenario, maybe a small loss. But I think having the opportunity and the ability to lose small in that one and just mitigate our losses and come back tomorrow stronger than ever. Lower stop, okay. And RHI, so I'll keep an eye on it. For those of you who are in Slack, I'll keep you all posted and let you know how to update your stops and trail your positions on that trade. If you're not in Slack, make sure to get in Slack. We have a special running right now for the next few days. Summer blowout special, $249 a month. Or you can pop over here for the $794 and just do it for 4 months. We have a lot to offer. We have an incredible community. We have incredible, gorgeous, generous, loving human beings. And with that, my friends, I will see each and every one of you in the afternoon room from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard for Energy Wednesday. And then I'll be here tomorrow and Friday. And then the weekend will be here. And until next time, love life, live life, and trade it. You guys rock.